Now, welcome to another weekend ramble, where this time the topic is,
Mandalorian.
well,
Sorry, more than just Mandalorian. I want to talk about what you feel about the season so far, kind of what our circle of people we talk to. How is this season being received? How does this compare, in your opinion, to the last couple of seasons thus far?
it's a different show, and that's neither good nor bad.
It's weird, the Nielsen ratings have finally come in, too,
Yeah.
and they are lower than the other seasons of Mandalorian. They're
They're,
above Book of Boba Fett, but that's not saying
well, the
much.
minutes are lower, but you also have to keep in mind that's compared to like season two, which had like almost a double the length of an episode for a first episode, I should say. But you also then have to keep in mind people probably watched a lot of season one and two going into that first episode of Mandalorian of this season, so that may have inflated the runtime too. Though you could say that about season two, but you only got one extra season. I don't know. I don't know how much you can really extrapolate from the ratings and
But
the
the
minutes
feeling
watched.
on the internet for this season has been bizarre.
Yeah, I do think there's less excitement. I feel like there's less buzz around the show this year. Maybe that's just me.
Well, part of the problem, I think, is it took so long to get to this. It was a long break between season 2 and season 3. Season 1 and 2 were like bang bang, it felt like. Season 3 is like, "Oh, just wait, guys. It's coming. It's coming someday." The pacing this season has been a mess.
Every episode has felt a little different. Whereas if you look at the first two seasons, you generally had Mandalorian gets introduced to problem, Mandalorian figures out problem, end of episode. I mean, they're usually pretty basic.
But it worked for an overall story.
Yeah,
He had an overall quest. And yes, he had those side things, but those side things contributed to him moving forward with what he was doing.
yeah, there was always an overarching narrative that got contributed to by each episode, but it was never really front and center, or rarely. I mean, maybe then the season finale or the first episode or the third episode of season one, where kind of a culmination of the first three episodes. But that almost feels like one long episode when you combine those first three. And not to discredit it or knock it, but it always felt very simplistic in nature the first two seasons. Whereas this season, I mean, you go to the Pershing episode, it's very, very different. It's
Yes.
more, it's an intentional setup where you never really had intentional, overt, very obvious setup in the first two seasons.
Well, I think they did in a way have obvious setup because we were given
But I mean,
a
where the whole,
quest.
yeah, but I mean, where the whole, no, I agree with that. But it's setting up something bigger overall. Whereas, yeah, you would have the, obvious problem arises, Mandalorian deals with it, perhaps something else is added to the greater story. This is like the Pershing episode, really the whole purpose was to set up something bigger. It in itself is not much of a story. Certainly not a story about the Mandalorian.
But do you think that that is detrimental to the audience who want a straightforward Star Wars story?
Depends on the audience member.
Honestly, yes, that's a
I
factor
mean,
too.
for the one who wants the straightforward story, it is a detriment. I mean, anecdotal. I certainly talk to a lot. Everybody I know, friends, family, everybody likes to tell me what they think of Star Wars. Everybody I know is kind of a different level of fan. The less of a fan of Star Wars you are overall, the more I've seen people not like this season.
Right, because it's delving into lore that they're like, I don't have context for
Yeah,
this, so
I
I
don't
don't
know.
care because I wanted to follow Din.
Yeah, for example, I talked to my father just today about the season overall. I visited him, and he told me like this season feels like the Mandalorians. I miss when it was just about the lone gunslinger doing his thing every episode, and I don't get all these things. He's not a huge Star Wars fan. He likes the movies. He's liked the first two seasons of the Mandalorian, and so he's like I just don't get why we're putting all this extra stuff in here. I liked Din and the little kid and doing all the cool missions, and I don't get why we have to have these episodes that really don't accomplish the same things that the first seasons did.
Right, in a sense, it does feel a little overwhelming, maybe a little lost in translation.
Yeah, because then I told him, like, as someone who obviously keeps track of everything Star Wars, almost, literally, and, knows all of these things, like, I see the things he is going to miss. I understand, the Pershing is could be setting up First Order things, it's setting up, this problems in the New Republic, that we have this amnesty program, which is some kind of covert operation by former Imperials, perhaps. So, like, I get all that stuff because I know, I just know Star Wars better than him. He's watches this and goes, I don't get why you spent 30 minutes on this.
Well,
or
he's
40
watching
minutes.
this and going, the show is called The Mandalorian,
Yeah.
which for 2 seasons was Din. Where has he been this season? It feels like this season, Din has been more of a side character.
Yeah, absolutely. He bathed in the living waters, and since then he washed away his story arc.
Well, he had a little interlude in the latest episode with Grief Karga and did some fancy flying, but
Yeah.
Bo-Katan has taken center stage for a lot of things now.
Yeah. And, I know people make the argument, well, it's called The Mandalorian, it doesn't specify. But let's be real about it. Like, the first 2 seasons are about Din Djarin. You can try to argue that Grogu is the Mandalorian. Okay, that's a fair argument, I suppose. But in no way, shape, or form did the first season feel like the purpose of this show was to build to, or Mandalore overall, and the whole of Mandalore and Mandalorians, or whatever you want to call it. It was a very specific and very focused story. And that is not, this is not that show anymore.
Here, let me move into a crazy theory I have for the upcoming few last-minute episodes we've got going on. Because supposedly we're supposed to get some sort of really cool scene with Bo and Din. We also know she's got her own quest. We also think we should get some tidbits, perhaps, to the Ahsoka series more than just seeing our beloved Zeb.
Yeah.
In the rumor that Boba Fett might show up.
Yeah. Well, he was on like a poster, or like a clip right out of Book of Boba Fett.
Yes.
So he's on the poster, which would be
Well, and then there was
strange.
the interview with Brendan Wayne, who's kind of like, Boba Fett, sometimes
just
he
show
shows
up.
up. You never know. Here's some theories that tie stuff like that together for these last remaining 3 episodes. Bo-Katan is on her own. Bo-Katan is going off. She's supposed to reunite the clans. I think Din might go with her.
Probably.
I mean,
what
he
else
is
is he
an
going to do?
envoy of the way. All that good stuff. Bo-Katan could easily go looking for Sabine Wren from Clan Wren and could run into her, so we get an Ahsoka
Sense.
tie-in. And
Yeah.
we get to see Sabine. Great stuff. Bo-Katan could go to Tatooine to look for Boba Fett, because Mando could just be like, I know where Boba Fett is.
But why do we need Boba Fett?
Because we could make him a Mandalorian. His
He used to not take his helmet off.
Yeah, we could have him just leave it back on again. Or we're melding the ways now, who knows. But we could go and find Boba Fett. Or we could use Boba Fett's help in defeating Moff Gideon because he's out there.
Well, that's the other weird thing. It's like we don't really have an antagonist yet.
But
I mean, it's obviously going to be Gideon, but we're over halfway through the season, and it's like we don't really have the bad guy.
remember, Bo-Katan is looking for Mandalorians. Let's say she finds the group that freed Moff Gideon.
Almost seems inevitable, yeah.
Possibly leftover Mandalore commando guys who we saw in Rebels.
From the Empire,
Maybe tries to recruit them or has to fight them, and then maybe that's where Boba Fett shows up because he's got to show up, I guess. Heck, that's where Ahsoka and Sabine could even show up. Another piece to the puzzle to get them to Thrawn.
Potentially.
But we know we're supposed to see some really cool interaction scene between Din and Bo. Okay, Bo-Katan goes to find her old squad of Mandalorians who are mercenarying their way around the galaxy in her ships. She goes to reach out to them. They say we'll only follow you if you have the Darksaber. This is where they duel. This is the official duel for the Darksaber. And either they'll follow her, or they'll realize Din is worthy and they'll follow him back to the way.
I think the problem with that is
They're sheep, remember? She said so.
well, yeah, but I mean, you want to stop the sheep mentality, right? You don't want them to just follow the Darksaber. That's kind of the whole thing you're trying to work against. I think you're trying to make them for Mandalore, not for I have the Darksaber, you listen to me.
But what if they have to use that in a way to get them to there? Because then they'll see the mythosaur, they'll bathe in the water, they can drink the Kool-Aid later.
It is going to seem really strange if the Darksaber doesn't come into play.
It's important. It needs to remain important.
I mean, could Bo run into the group of Mandalorians who liberated Gideon and he defeats her in single combat? Fair up, straight, one-on-one duel kind of thing?
Or maybe she's fighting Gideon for some reason, and Din tosses her the saber, and she defeats Moff Gideon with it in front of all the others, and they're like, oh,
and I do mean
worthy.
defeat Mando, not...
I know.
So
I'm just saying, there's some interesting things they could do, but I feel like they don't have enough time left to do it because they spend a lot of time doing setup for things that maybe they could have extended a couple episodes or maybe pulled some of that back out.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did take a long time with setup.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at the first 2 seasons, though, you do have episodes that have a touch of setup, but are mainly just meant to be self-contained stories. Mm-hmm. Like the whole middle part of season 1 is really just...
Well, the problem was these stories weren't as self-contained story feeling to me.
No, definitely not. I agree.
They were very choppy in the editing room. We have like the beginning of the episode's one thing, the middle something else.
Yeah.
In the end is either going to go back to the first thing or be something entirely different. Without that consistency in story arc, it's a mess.
Like I said, it's not the same show anymore. It's trying to accomplish something different. Instead of being a show that is meant to be a singular entity, it is trying to set up something bigger. It's Disney seeing the success of it, realizing, well, we're not making movies. We had a lot of problem on that front. We want to push Disney Plus. We need subscribers here. Let's look at the MCU, the success of that, and let's make the Mandoverse.
I mean, all they have left from the trailer that we haven't seen is the droid bar.
Yeah.
And the possible flashback to Mandalore.
Yeah, the dome cities, which one of the main reasons I think that is Mandalore in the past is because if you look at what we've seen out of Mandalore before, it is a very flat. It's featureless, entirely featureless. So potentially another planet in Mandalorian space, certainly, or that has built dome cities for reasons. Keeping in mind the Mandalorians built domes because of the problems they had, the poisonous atmosphere. So it could be that another planet that looks exactly flat, like Mandalore, also built domes. Who knows?
It could be. I'd really like it to be a flashback, but how much more bo-katan show do we need this season when I want a little more Mando in this? I'm not saying I haven't enjoyed seeing bo-katan because I absolutely have.
I enjoy her character.
But I don't want Mando to sit taking a back seat all the time in this show that is made for him.
Was initially, yeah. Like I said, I don't think it's his show anymore. I think that's almost, I don't want to say official, but I think it's kind of obvious that it's really not about him and Grogu anymore.
I mean, I was happy Bo finally got a quest. I mean, Din's had, quests from the armor. Now she has, an official quest from an armorer.
Yeah.
It's great.
She's the quest giver.
She is the quest giver. Forges armor. Forges quests. It's all the same.
She gives quest rewards, right? You get new pieces of armor. Total upgrades. But no, I just think like I said, I think it's a matter of Disney realizing the Star Wars brand has been tarnished by the sequels. Whether you love them or hate them, you can't deny that the sequels did damage to the franchise. So they saw this was just, everybody grabbed it. Everybody loved this. Not literally, of course, but figuratively, every Star Wars fan loved The Mandalorian. Casual fans loved it. Kids loved it. Old people loved it. Everybody loved this damn show. So you bet big on that. You were like, okay, so this is the formula. This is what people want. Let's make more of this. Let's branch off from this and make Ahsoka and Skeleton Crew and the bo-katan show, or just turn this into the bo-katan show. And that's what you're seeing. You're seeing the result of its success in a weird sort of way.
Absolutely.
And I don't hate it. I like it. I don't think it's, like I said, I don't think it's the same show. So it's really hard to kind of grapple with that, because I actually really enjoyed season 1. I thought season 2 was a little, the cameo of the week was a little okay, ironic that, or coincidental that he's running into every major character in the franchise that's alive right now. I enjoyed season 2 because it was a similar formula, and this is just a totally different formula.
I mean, we do have 3 more weeks of Mando. Maybe by the end, when we see the culmination of what this season was trying to do, maybe it'll warm us up to it more, or we'll be more disappointed with really weird editing.
I actually think the 5th episode was a very good culmination of the first half of the season. You saw...
It pulled a lot of the threads back.
Yeah, it tied everything together, and you saw what they were doing, but it's like, oh, geez, did we need 4 episodes to tie us into something that kind of felt like the real kickoff of the season?
That's the problem. I still have my theory that if the Rangers of the New Republic show would have been made, we would have learned a lot of this ahead of time, and then the Mandalorian show would have continued focusing on the Mandalorians, but would have pulled story threads in there.
Yes, this feels like we got New Republic or Rangers of the New Republic thing thrown in here. Like there's probably some rewriting and just, we had this one episode where Din and Bo did something, but now we can throw Pershing in the middle of it for 40 minutes.
Man, does that mean that Zeb would have been the star of Rangers of the New Republic? Now that Cara Dune was out of the picture?
Maybe.
Zeb in the Rangers of the New Republic with Captain Diva. Zeb and Tiva, Rangers of the New Republic.
I thought you said Diva. I was like,
no,
Captain Diva.
Diva. Well, you saw who else was in that squadron. This could be a really great show. I mean, Deborah Chow is in it. Rick Fukushima's in it. We have Dave Filoni in it. Captain Tiva and Zeb. Hey, this is a great show.
I'd watch it. I couldn't believe how good Zeb looked.
He looks so good.
Yeah.
And the face work. The face capture work was done by Steve Blum.
Yeah.
So, voice and face. He's coming along.
Yeah. No, that was cool. I would have loved to have seen a Rangers of the New Republic with Zeb. It's funny because he was never my favorite character from the show, but
he got to be better along the way.
They all did. They all did. Rebels was very impressive. If
only Callus would have walked in.
I half expected him to.
With
the mutton chops, yeah. Hot Callus when he finally let the hair down.
Yeah.
But no, it's funny how Rebels got much better as you got vested in the characters. And so when I saw Zeb, I'm like, oh, that's awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
But I guess I should stop rambling about Rebels.
Yeah, we're good now with the Rebels thing.
All right, well then, in that case, that's all we got for you this time. So now it's your turn to take to the comments below and just tell us what you think about The Mandalorian Season 3 so far. Are you enjoying the new direction? Do you miss the lone gunslinger spaghetti western feel, or what? Whatever the case may be, leave those comments below. Let's talk some Star Wars, and until next time, thanks for watching.